Welcome back to Area Diesel Service. Today we've got another exciting video for you. We've gotten some feedback about our video and editing style, and we're going to mix it up a little bit with this one. We're going to bring you two different creations. We're going to do kind of a short style, hit the highlights, summary type video, and then for those of us, myself included, who like to geek out on the technical side of things, we are going to create the director's cut, full feature, every tidbit, rebuilding this injection pump. Today we are going to bring you some new collaborative content with fellow YouTube creator Watch Wes work. If you didn't come here from Wes, please go over and check out Watch Wes work. He's got an excellent repair-based YouTube channel where he gets into some high-level diagnostic situations. High-quality content coming from Wes's channel. So if you've been following Wes's channel, you saw he recently published a video called Unicorns Are Real. Wes had a local viewer and customer purchase and bring to him a 1995 Dodge 2500 5.9 Cummins 4-wheel drive, and she's a beaut. Mint condition, well maintained, very clean rig, very desirable rig. 12 valve, 5.9 liter Cummins with the legendary Bosch P-pump, P7100 inline injection pump. If you saw the first video on his channel, this thing was in for some brake repairs, coolant leak. Wes ran the overhead. I think he might have done some steering work or something on the front end. Fuel sending unit in the tank. So I think all that went pretty well for Wes, but sometime between then and now, this truck developed a drivability issue. Wes says 99% of the time, this thing runs flawlessly. When we get full operating temperature, and on a very intermittent basis, it will develop a single cylinder misfire. That misfire will then escalate into a multiple cylinder misfire. Then he will experience a stuck throttle, and shortly after that, the engine will die and not restart. And then give it some time, fire it back up, everything's fine. Cycle repeats itself.
We are quite a ways from the shop, so I hope we can make it back. Usually it's fine for a few minutes, then it'll start to act up again. You gotta let it cool off. It's hot today, like 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Just started its misfire. So it's dead on at least one cylinder. That's got to be at least 2 cylinders. Right there, the throttle's stuck on me. So I'm not touching the gas pedal at all right now. That is weird. My foot is off the pedal. There, it finally came down. Now it's dead. No, bounce back. There's some kind of an apparition in this injection pump. Alright, yeah, we're dead.
As you know, Wes is an extremely advanced technician, right? So no parts canon on Wes's channel. He is doing thorough diagnostic work. I think he's got quite a bit of time trying to figure this one out, or at least replicate the problem. He has confirmed quality fuel. He has confirmed appropriate supply fuel pressure. He has confirmed shut-off solenoid operation during these events. And beyond that, there's not much left. If the engine's turning, the solenoid's on, and you're feeding it fuel, if it's not running, pretty much going to be in the injection pump. Wes crossed all of his T's and dotted his I's, pulled the pump off, sent it to us, and that's where we are today. Not a very common complaint on this one. This thing is purely mechanical, with the exception of the electric solenoid. When these things fail, it's generally not intermittent. Usually mechanical stuff like this breaks and it's broken, it doesn't fix itself again and fire back up. I'll give you maybe 1,000 foot of what's going on, how this thing functions. So this pump is mounted on the back end of the timing cover. It's got a gear that fits on the taper here, and it runs off of the gear train driven by the engine. Pump runs at half engine speed, takes 2 revolutions to turn the pump once. 4-stroke engine. There's a camshaft in here, looks just about like any other camshaft you've seen in an overhead valve engine. Camshaft running through here with lobes, tappets inside of the housing. There are pumping elements that deliver the fuel. It's basically a hydraulic pump at that point. And then behind this is the rack, ties all of those pumping elements together and passes through into the governor side of the pump. So this is an RQV style governor, layman's term min-max governor. So it's only controlling RPMs at idle and full load. Everything in between is handled by the foot feed. Very common on-road style governor. Aneroid, fuel control device, boost pressure runs in here, and we basically wait to see some air or boost from the turbo before we start feeding her all of the fuel. This is early emissions control devices. You can see here, throttle shaft, a little bit of damage in shipping, little callywonk there, no big deal. We can replace that. Solenoid boot, pretty well shot. Solenoid is one of the potential culprits here, although Wes feels like it's not the issue. Probably put a new solenoid on there. That one's certainly seen better days. Lock timing, so when he goes back together, pull that out and you can lock the timing so you get it timed to the engine appropriately. Potential causes, maybe electric solenoid. If the electric solenoid is losing its ability to stay engaged or let the fuel stay turned on, if this starts to creep out, then we'll start to partially shut off the fuel. You'll develop misfires and you'll die basically. So just like turning off the key, if that fails, engine's gonna die. Rack and or stuck pumping element. So Gary will give you a much more in-depth look at functionality and how this thing works. But again, camshaft with lobes, operating on tappets, pushing up on the pumping elements. Those elements are turned with a helix, depending on the amount of fuel you intend to deliver. And that turned position is dictated by the control rack, which is connected to the governor, which controls fuel delivery. Anything that's in the rack sticking, or anything sticking in one or any combination of one or more of the pumping elements, will cause the pump to stay in that fuel delivery mode. Again, we talked about Wes has some sticky throttle issues, so if the rack is sticking or if one of these pumping elements is stuck in a certain orientation, that's where the foot feed's gonna live. All speculation, we won't know until we scatter it and get in there.
So the fuel plate's under there, if they ever wanted to look in there, they'd want to put that back where it came off.
So does that make you think someone's been in there?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
This seal over here makes it look like they haven't.
It's still sealed back here.
That makes it look like they haven't.
Okay.
This makes it look like they've been in here though, because they replaced it with a break-off screw, and they didn't go the extension of breaking it off.
Factory breaks it off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not factory.
So somebody's been probably with the fuel plate. Maybe they put a bigger, isn't that like a under the hood adjustment you can do?
You can actually set the fuel by sliding it further forward in the pump.
Adjust it.
Yeah.
Don't change it, adjust it.
You can change it.
You
There's
can adjust it.
racing plates.
Okay. This bent lever, this is throttle.
Yep. Just got whacked. O-ring up here doesn't look stock, but that's neither here nor there.
I noticed this one is
Different.
It doesn't it look like it's different metal treatment or color?
Which don't mean nothing though, because they're all the same. Usually none of them are that clean. Like I say, the truck's in good shape, so chances are it's taken care of.
Yeah.
Nope, looks okay to me. Looks clean.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you from the outside anyway, without seeing the insides.
Looks like potentially someone's been in here before. I question that the aneroid has been off. You remove the aneroid and you reveal the fuel plate, which you can make an adjustment or you can replace with a modified or race fuel plate. We don't know if anybody's been in there or what modifications have been done to it at this point. Rest of the pump, probably factory original. So we can see sealing wire there, sealing wire there. I do notice one of the delivery valve holders has got a little bit different metal finish, so I don't know if someone's been in there and replaced that. Not completely out of question for that to be a different color, but potentially a clue. And I don't see any seal paint on the nuts for that. The O-ring, that's not a Bosch original. Maybe some evidence someone has been here before us, maybe not. But given the symptoms and scenario, we're probably thinking we've got something sticking. So potentially the rack that controls the fuel delivery, potentially one of the pumping elements, the barrel and plunger, could be intermittently sticking in a temperature related scenario. Or another common one would be shut off solenoid, but again, Wes confirmed operation of the solenoid. Purely speculation at this point. I have no idea what's wrong with this pump, but we're going to write up a work order. We're going to turn it over to Gary, who is our resident inline pump expert. Gary will get it back in the fuel shop, clean it up, tear it down, inspect, develop a game plan, and then we'll make the fix, tune and calibrate, and we'll meet you back up here.
Introduce myself, Gary Dahler. Been working on inline fuel injection pumps at Area Diesel for 40 years. We got one here from Wes. Watch Wes work. Having an intermittent flutter miss on his engine. RPMs like to take off and run away. Come down and die. Everything indicates he might have a sticky plunger when it gets hot. That's what I'm going to be looking for. We've also got other issues with leakages in oil, diaphragm's bad. We're not just going to assume something and look for it. We're going to take and rebuild the pump. Okay? First thing I'm going to do is cap it up, wash it off, blast the paint off it, disassemble it, look for the problem, and hopefully we'll find an evidence on a certain plunger. I've already got a cylinder here, number 3. Looks different than the other ones to me. Different colors. So I'm going to keep my focus on number 3 for now. Maybe somebody in the past has done something to this. Maybe not. Could be a different cylinder. We may not find anything at all. It took Wes 2 or 3 months to get the truck to act up and have the failure that it's having. So for me to find it in 1 day, 2 days, might be unlikely, but that's what happens when we try to rebuild a pump. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. Take the name tags off ahead of time. Got to have the numbers on them. I don't want to blast the numbers off of them. First thing he's going to need is a new boot for his shut-off solenoid. Also, quite obviously, he's got oil leakage at the throttle lever, which has also been bent and hit, so that'll get replaced. Pretty well tell right here, got a break-off bolt. It's supposed to be broken off to keep them from tampering. Someone's been inside this put a new bolt in it but didn't break it off. So that's to me evidence somebody's been inside this pump and probably adjusted the fuel. Neither here nor there for this complaint. Alright, the pump's capped up. I'm going to take it over and wash it off. First step is just get rid of the external dirt, grease, and oil. Most certain oil off it now. We're going to take it over and bead blast all the paint off it. Just from the first look at it, each one of these have a part number on them, and that part number is different than those, so sometime or another, somebody's been messing with number 3. Okay, now we got the paint off it. We're just looking for the problem he's having as far as the sticky rack running away, coming down and dying, but we're rebuilding the pump. We'll just look for the problem part once we get into it. May still have oil in it, but may not. Again, gonna totally disassemble it. New gasket seals, totally reassemble it. That way we can try to guarantee Wes that we found his problem and cured it, or we did not find a problem and he's got to look somewhere else. Mark his aneroid cover so it goes back on the right direction. this screw would have been knocked off the way it's supposed to, it'd be like this when you'd have to chisel it out. Tamper-proof. You can also tell just by the bolt, Bosch be a 9mm or a 10. That's neither. That's not even a Bosch break-off bolt. Okay, fuel plate. Experience. This is an addition. Somebody has changed the fuel plate in this, probably for performance or something. And I'll just mark where it's at. They've obviously wanted to turn the fuel up. So it'll be put back in the same way it comes out. Not a Bosch part. It does still have a profile on it that the governor will use for fuel at different speeds. Somebody wanted it. A lot of times when the person, customer, whatever, goes in and starts mucking with things, it ends up causing other issues. Might be with this one. all these gaskets and stuff, getting ready for buildup. Pound. Heat works good to loosen up the gasket. Replace it. These heads can be kind of tough to get out. Not hardly a speck of oil in the governor, so they either drained it good or it's not been getting a good oil supply, which could lead to other issues in the pump. Have tapered pins, which once they're set, they like to stay. All right. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's one of the tapered pins. Once it gets set in, it doesn't want to come out. Now I get the throttle shaft out. Gets replaced. Okay, under this condition right now, rack is totally free. The rack's backwards, shut-off position. If you want to run it, goes forward. Okay, if for some reason it sticks, the engine will just keep going up once you let off your load, runaway condition. Finally, the weights will throw enough pressure, even if one's sticking, pull it back to the shut-off position, come down and die. Normally there's enough spring tension to keep it idling. If it's sticking, so I'm still looking for a sticking plunger. And right now the rack's free in a cool condition. plungers all come out from the bottom. Time for a new tool. Definitely should be a lot easier than that. Let the plugs out. Tools, we're going to, one at a time, turn the tappets up. Put our tools in, rotate them a little bit, raise it up a little higher, get the pressure off the cam. Once we get the cam out, we can get in and take the plungers out and start examining them. Without proper tools, plug puller, tappet tools, no one should be messing with this pump. Now the pressure's off, so now I can take out the cam. Another tool for pulling the cam. Depending on a failure, sometimes a cam will give you a clue. Because I'm paying attention to number 3. Look, number 3 lobe doesn't appear to have any issues. take tappets out and examine the plungers, which is kind of what I'm after. Haven't found anything yet. Doesn't appear any of the tappets were sticking. Plungers look excellent. Number one. Two looks good. Three, which we're going to examine because of the holder, looks perfect. Including number 6, they all look perfect, so we'll just go ahead and clean it up. Might still find something with the barrel itself, but yeah, so far nothing. Okay, Kurt, he's going after an ugly looking plunger of some sort. These couldn't look any cleaner than if it was brand new.
Rack free in the housing?
Rack was free before, still free. Customer still has his problem though, so, and it points towards the pump. We'll continue through.
Nothing crazy on the governor end?
Nothing bad in the governor. The whole pump couldn't look much better than new so far. But we still got to concentrate on finding an issue. Number 3 still sends a flag because of the discoloration. Each one of them's got its own number on it. $12.38, that's number 3. Actually, number 1's $12.30. Yeah. Okay, that's actually fine. Even though it's discolored, different color, not discolored, it is the correct part number. So, even though it appeared to be different, it's the same part number. Same old paint. So, kind of eliminates that as an issue right now. We may end up having to just change out the barrel and plungers to cover our butts here. Customers don't usually like it, but
It's the scattergun approach, not uncommon in the automotive world. If you don't find it, fix everything.
might be a touch of a flag to me just because this one's harder to get out than the rest, but coercion. Will come out. Delivery valves not causing a sticky plunger. Okay, we're going to keep track of the number one shim. When we get to the building and testing stage, cylinders will all be phase timed within 60 degrees of each other. We'll just keep track of one shim for now and we'll fit the other ones on the stand. Okay, this way this pump's built. Down inside at the base here, each barrel has two O-rings. Has one on the top to keep fuel from escaping. The way it's built, it's a two-stepped machining in the housing. When these go in, if for some reason somebody packs extra grease in here, physical characteristics, you're starting with a one size of a, what do you want to call it, one area. The grease will actually get packed. The step in the housing will pack the grease in, causing pressure in this area, which can cause a sticky plunger. So I can't eliminate a sticky plunger, but normally it would leave a mark on the plunger. Wherever it got tight here, it caused discoloration on the plunger. None of these have that. So I can't eliminate it as a sticky plunger being a problem, but no evidence of it. We'll just continue disassembly, go to clean up, and rebuild. We'll let our parts manager be in charge of if he gets new barrel and plungers or not.
Well, we talked about the quality of this truck, Wes's customer. This is a mint condition P-pump Dodge. So the direction from Wes was no expense spared. They want it done right. They want a quality repair. They want something that's going to last for another 20 or 30 years. So ask and you shall receive. We're going to spare no expense. This is going to get the full treatment.
Which is one of the only ways we can guarantee our product.
Always makes us a little nervous when we don't see a smoking gun. That's why we're going to also be in favor of the scatter gun approach, right? Anything that could cause it is going to get replaced with new, and shouldn't have any concerns after that.
Yeah, everything looks really good. Obviously, it got some age on it. It's a 95 truck. So it's pushing 20, 25 years.
Yeah, 27 years.
Every last nut and bolt. All right, proceed to cleanup.
Did you say you had some leaks on it?
Yeah, throttle shaft was leaking. Not unusual.
And that's leaking fuel or oil?
Leaking oil.
No drivability things to pick up there though, that's just a leak.
Yep.
It looked like it had stock fuel plate. It looked like anybody been in there.
Definitely has an aftermarket fuel plate. Somebody has been in there.
Does that concern us?
Probably not. Not causing the drivability issue he's having. It's not going to cause the rack to stick. After some performance one time or another, we marked where we took it apart at. We'll reset it to that same mark for power. Anytime somebody does monkey with anything in this pump, other pumps also, they're taking a chance on causing themselves a problem.
Yeah, but we make that modification too, right? I mean, that's not the first time we've...
We adjust them to customers' performances,
Right.
Whatever they want. I personally like to stay with stock Robert Bosch settings, parts. Don't like monkeying with it. Don't like monkeying with RQB governors. And I would definitely prefer that most customers don't, or they may cause themselves problems. Not in this case, but...
So we don't think the modified fuel plate would cause the symptom that he's having?
No, but again, you can never ever tell.
Yeah.
I like to build stock pumps to stock specs with stock parts. That's not always the case. We can't always get the correct parts. But any kind of modification, any way or the other with an RQB governor, 7100 pump's good, solid, but the governor is extremely touchy.
What about the weights, stock weights? Didn't see any modification there?
I didn't see any modifications. I can't really tell. I probably would have been able to notice that somebody had been in there and worked on it, which I didn't get that feeling about the weight.
There's a spring in there, a governor spring that's a common upgrade here?
No. Every RQB has a different set of springs to follow the test plan, causing this lever here to go up and down at different speeds, with different amounts of pressure. If for some reason this gets monkeyed with, springs get changed, this arm, okay, talk about possibilities. Customer has a fuel plate, can be slid forward in the pump for more fuel, backwards for less fuel, change it completely, like this customer's done. This arm, which is inside here and goes up and down with different speeds, could possibly get in a condition where it gets stuck underneath this plate when it's supposed to be on the top of the plate following a fuel curve for different rates of fuel at different speeds. Could possibly get stuck underneath it and cause it to stick and cause some of his issues. So that can't be ruled out as one of the problems.
Would it lack power if that lever got stuck under the fuel plate?
It could have more power, less power. It could do anything. It's just not the way Robert Bosch built it.
When these guys ask for like a 4,000 RPM governor spring or a 5,000 spring,
Yep.
is that this dude?
Yep. Which
So-
affects everything else in the pump.
And we can't tell from here if that's factory or not.
Nope. Yeah, no IDs on it. No IDs on the spring. No color codes. Myself being colorblind wouldn't help me, but
So how will you know? Will you test that with like a spring compressor, like a valve spring compressor to tell what the pressure is there, or
nope.
just back with what you had?
Back with what he has. I'm hoping that's probably not the issue. It would probably show up on the test stand. But again, this customer didn't have a problem for 3 months of driving the truck until it made it have the problem he was having. So, yeah, we're still up in the air. I don't know what's going on yet. But when somebody changes something, that's a red flag to me. People do it all the time. Some people take the fuel plate out and run it with their throttle. Put the throttle down, and it goes to full fuel. And it stays there until it hits its top rated RPM. Yeah, it's up to the customer what they do. They just have to pay attention that it may cause a consequence. Again, maybe not in this case, but just leaves me with questions because I don't know who did it, why they did it.
When did the problem start? Did this start immediately after that was modified? And again, we don't know. Wes's customer is a new owner of this truck, so we don't know much history prior to that. How long has it been doing this? Under what circumstances did it occur? We don't know. We don't have a full backstory, but...
Yep. And again, I like to do things to Bosch specs. This is a part number pump. It ends with a 10-digit number of 838.
Yeah.
It requires these plungers, stock plungers, stock cam. In my opinion, unless this customer wants extra horsepower than a stock truck, I'd go back with the stock fuel plate, and if it follows the stock fuel plate specifications, I'd guarantee the pump. With aftermarket parts in it, I'll guarantee the good stuff, but the other stuff I can't guarantee.
We'll dictate that. We'll put that ball in their court, see what they want to do, and
I think these are stock weights. I think they just went in and did the fuel plate adjustment, and it may not have hurt anything in the world, but I don't know that.
So show them. So this is kind of the heart of the governor. So as the pump spins, it spins this unit. It's got weights in it.
Yep. In this particular setup, the weights start moving out at its low speed. That gives it governor at idle. High speed, there's other sets of springs inside of those sets of springs. Much harder to compress. The way this works, in the pickup truck, you have a governor at idle. Get you away from the stop sign without dying. From there on out, you're using your own foot pedal to increase the RPM up to rated speed, which on this one I believe is 2,600 RPMs, high idle at 3,000. So in between, it's all up to the operator's foot pedal.
So you can monkey with these springs and change the rate at which centrifugal force throws this weight out.
Yeah.
So this is spinning. This weight is trying to fly out. The spring is counteracting that force. This is how you adjust the top end governor speed of the pump.
Yep. On the same token, right here, if you've got that action at idle, if you try compressing those springs using the adjusting nuts, all of a sudden, you're not going to have any governor at idle. If it's required for this arm at a low speed, it's going lower on the ramps. If it's required to go underneath that fuel plate to start, you turn those in even a turn, you no longer will get that action. You'll never get a good start, you know. It'll never get to the start position. That arm will always be up in a higher position. So anytime anybody does anything to the weights, springs, even the fuel plate, you may have problems. We're asked to do it on occasion and we have good luck, but again.
We also do that modification and then go to a calibration stand though.
Yeah.
This was likely done under the shade tree on the truck, so it's an acceptable upgrade. It happens millions. I mean, there's millions of these aftermarket fuel plates sold, but like Gary said, as soon as you wander from the factory calibration, factory bill of materials, you've opened up a whole new can of worms. So,
which in this case, it doesn't sound like that would be Wes's problem. It was the prior owner's issue.
yeah.
So now we'll try to make it a little more reliable, whatever it takes. Been nice to find a smoking gun with a scarred up plunger, a discolored plunger. We could replace the bad plunger, be 99% confident of the repair. Since we haven't found anything yet, and he's got what sounds to be a sticking plunger at high, at warm temperatures, Even though there's no evidence yet, we'll clean these up and maybe find something later, but so far, don't see any issues. Sorry, Wes. Cleanup time. Okay, we're going to start our cleanup now by basically using safety clean solvent and do all the hard steel parts. Aluminum housings and stuff will finish off on our face-off wheel. So now we're going to start with just cleaning up the dirt and oil off the part. Steel part cleaned up with solvent, cleaned up and in the room. Now we're going to take care of our aluminum parts. Gasket's tough to come off. Got them off, but we'll face these off. Finish blasting some of the dirt and paint that didn't come off before. Peel my seal out of there. And when we get these all cleaned up, we'll head into the build-up room and start building it. Missed one. Then we'll have another step with bead blast again, mostly for appearance, but can't have any dirt on it when we rebuild it. So I'm going to take these, bead blast them, wash them again, dry them, and we'll be ready for the build-up room. Okay, a lot of these steps seem repetitive, but by the time we get it in the room, I don't want any dirt, anything get in the way of building it. Any kind of dirt that would get caught in a barrel and plunger could cause the same issue he's already having. That's the reason we got to go to extremes, have everything basically spotless. We'll take it into the build-up room and start building it. But even look at this right here. See that discoloration?
Yeah.
A nudge right there. But until it actually sticks, now when it heats up, it could stick. And that's what I'm looking at that mark for.
Yeah,
I can see it even from over here. And what I was going to show you when I was putting it together. Okay, the furthest up it ever goes is that. And basically to there.
right.
It goes down to maybe there. So, the grease points right here, which is right where that's at. So it could be something as simple as they just had grease in between the two O-rings.
Just squeeze a little bit on it.
And it could also be a mismanufactured plunger.
Were any of the others have any sign of?
Okay, and I'm looking right here.
I can just getting pretty damn picky.
Right, you can't.
That one you can see it on.
Yeah, you can't compare it to that one. So that one doesn't have the marks.
Not really. Maybe just a faint.
And unless they're brand spanking new, they're going to have marks.
But there's a little something.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Clean. Pretty clean. Basically, when it gets hot, it starts missing. Sounds like the rack starts sticking and comes down and dies, won't restart. Come back and restart. Pulled up a couple of older Boltons, not necessarily on this pump, going back to 95, another one in 1995, 96. Okay, starting out with, it's a Navstar, which this is a Cummins, but same principles. Again, this is on a 3000 series Navstar. Ours is a 7000 series Cummins. All the basics get back to the same thing. Okay, there have been reported cases of sticky elements and or rack on Bosch P-pumps. The condition generally manifests itself when the pump or engine is hot. Can result in any or all of the following conditions, including stuck rack, knocking noise, erratic engine operation, miss, surge, or stall, which Wes is having pretty much all of those. Hard start or no start condition, which he ended up running into after his rack started sticking. And again, this pertains more or less to Navstars, and there was between 1,000 and 40,000 hours, no particular cylinder. Duplication of the condition, especially hot, may be noted on the test stand. Might take 3 months to note it on the test stand, like it took Wes to find on his truck. Okay. Their fixes or whatever. Okay, 95.2, which is about 6 months after this one, they try to explain to you there's a pressure buildup between two lower barrel O-rings, which are indicated here. basically one lower O-ring here, a lower O-ring here, steel baffle ring here, which doesn't have anything to do with it, upper O-ring, which just keeps fuel going out of the pump. Fuel grease is getting caught between them two O-rings. Okay, when it gets pushed into the housing, top O-ring goes up here, bottom O-rings go in here. And depending on the camera and what she can see and can't see, right down in here there's a stepped bore. There's a step right here. So basically, grease gets caught in this area here, the top land. O-ring keeps it from going past down into the pump. The top O-ring, any grease that's caught in that land right there gets pushed into the smaller land, causing a hydraulic bind. So when we build this thing up, and we'll get into it later when we actually build it, we have to pay attention not to get grease trapped. Okay, when we land them two O-rings, again, it's hard to tell, but this O-ring is tighter to the barrel than this one is in its groove. Any grease trapped right in here loses its room in here in the housing. It gets packed in here, and what we're looking at, number one, again, it's hard to tell. You rotate it around, right here and here are two discoloration marks. That side is not showing it. So we're going with the complaints that Wes has, the conditions of this particular plunger. None of the rest of them show any kind of markings to speak of. And as Kurt mentioned earlier, to correct the problem, normally we would just rebuild the pump, light on the grease, probably would cure the problem, but being he's having a problem, we're going to replace all the barrel and plungers and anything else we can do to keep it from having a sticking plunger again. Okay, we also found, these are just hold down nuts and clamps for the barrel and plungers. Again, you have to pay attention to everything. This one's hard to see too. The back side's a lot easier to see. Something was trapped underneath that clamp and nut when it was built, or somebody's been monkeying with a pump, and it actually even put a little hairline crack in it, which again, it's not going to affect anything. A piece of dirt on top of that when it gets put together is not going to hurt anything. If a piece of dirt would get caught underneath these spacing shims, which are used for timing the pump cylinders, if a piece of dirt got caught under here between the housing and the shim, it would tilt this, cause them binding in this barrel and plunger again, which could cause a sticky plunger. So we'll just replace this shim. Probably wasn't affecting his condition, but we got to pay attention to everything when we rebuild this pump. Down to the point of the shims, there's one under each flange here, marked 145 on that one. So the other side has to have exactly the same shim so it doesn't create a bad binding situation again, which can cause a sticky plunger and all of the symptoms that Wes is having. Several things involved. We're concentrating on the barrel and plungers. We might have had a faulty barrel and plunger produced at the factory, some inconsistencies in it, but to cover our bases, we're going to replace all 6 barrel and plungers and totally rebuild the pump with new gaskets and seals. We try to lay everything out organized style just to keep things moving along as I'm building it. These are the old barrel and plungers. We'll reuse the delivery valves. So for now, I'm just going to reassemble these to keep them out of my way, out of harm's way. I always get calibration fluid put on them whenever we store them. When we took them apart, they're all kept in order. They're kept mated to each other. This plunger probably wouldn't fit in that barrel. If it did go together, it could have the wrong fit and cause the same problems that Wes had to begin with. That particular plunger, I can tell, it's free here, tight here. Has a small nick inconsistency on that top flange. I'm not using this plunger, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, our first standard shim we took apart and kept it number one when I took it apart. Other shims throw in the trash. Show you that on the test stand. Down here we have the new ones. Semi-organized just to keep things flowing as I build it. One other thing while we're starting, we showed when on the disassembly, had an aftermarket fuel plate in it. I can tell by the numbering on it. Okay, according to Bosch specs, 24009 stamping. That's the correct fuel plate for an 838 pump, which is what I'm building. So we're going back with a stock plate. We're going to give him some extra fuel, which just means we're going to bump this up a little bit when we adjust the fuel. This is going out. We're not taking any chances on anything causing Wes's problems. We're building a stock pump. Slight increase in fuel. We're also going to replace his shutoff cell. Again, probably not causing his problem. It would just cause a non-start problem if it wasn't working. If it failed, it could shut it off, but it wouldn't ever cause a sticking rack, which is one of Wes's problems, along with a miss. But it's going to get replaced also. Cover our bases. Okay, something else that we do also. Every pump gets identified with a name tag. This shows the original stock number on the name tag. Every pump we do here goes through a work order. Work order number doesn't get stamped on the pump. Serial number details get stamped into the housing. Anytime this pump would come back in the future, if it did come back in the future, we'll have our stamp on it. We can go back to the work order, test sheet, find out everything we did to the pump. So I'm going to stamp 27293 on the pump. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of prep work here on the housing itself, so I don't have to grease the O-rings on the barrels as much. Just the smallest amount I can get in that bore down there where the O-rings are going to go. Net needed so the O-rings don't get cut when they're installed. Can control rack through various parts, control segment being one of them. It's going to hook all 6 barrel and plungers together. So in this case here, we're having an issue with number 1, it appears. If number 1 has an issue where it starts to stick, first thing is going to happen, if that plunger sticks in an up position, it's going to start causing a miss on number 1. Because the plunger is stuck up in the barrel, it's not coming down, not getting a chance to charge, it's not pumping fuel. Okay, if one of those plungers gets tight, all of them are hooked together. So in Wes's condition, the plunger is getting stuck, causing a miss. It's causing the rack not to move, which is going to cause RPMs to maybe go up, maybe go down, depending on where it's stuck, fuel or no fuel. So even though number 1 is missing, not pumping, the others are still pumping fuel wherever the rack's stopped at. So at first it may cause the engine to take off and run away, which is one of Wes's complaints. Excessive RPMs. Well then, when you get enough weight pressure, even though the plunger's tight, it's actually going to still get pulled to the shut-off position, causing all the 5 that are still pumping to quit pumping fuel, causing an engine dying, stalling situation, which is what Wes is having. Once it cools down, okay, it's not starting. It got in a no start condition. Okay, once it sat for a while, cooled down a little bit, number 1 unfreezes, rack turns free again, it'll go ahead and start again, run again, till one of the plungers sticks again. We think that's what's happening with the west, so as I build this pump, every step I take is going to make sure that this rack is free. Okay, if it ever gets to a situation where I put a plunger in, put a barrel in, and the rack gets tight, got to pay attention to what's causing it to get tight. Rack has to stay free for 200,000 or 300,000 more miles, hopefully. Okay, first process, we're just putting the baffle ring on. 2 clips. The next step will be installing the new O-rings, assembling each unit. Barrels and plungers will be kept as mates now. Make sure they're free. They should drop on their own weight. Not a necessary test. Especially being these are brand new. Have to use extreme caution not to cause any imperfections, any dents, any nicks, any of the surfaces on this plunger. Barrels are a little bit tougher. First thing we'll do, install a new gasket for the delivery valve. Delivery valve. Spring assembly. New O-ring. Top O-ring. And again, just enough grease to coat the O-rings. Nothing excessive. Nothing visible between the O-rings. And you can tell, smaller diameter, larger diameter. If you pack grease in here, all the grease gets forced into that smaller area. It will cause a tight spot on the plunger. This can be dropped in the housing. Matching shims. Push them in later. Each of these barrels have oval slots in them, allowing them to go back and forth on the studs just a little bit. That'll be used to balance our fuel deliveries on the test stand. As you turn each one of these plungers on their control segments, you're actually turning the plunger inside the barrel, which is causing this helix, as it's lined up with charging ports underneath our baffle sleeve there. As the plunger's rotated this direction, we have a small effective stroke, low delivery for idle perhaps. Okay, as the rack gets rotated, the plungers get rotated to a longer effective stroke. The same way this gets changed for low delivery to high delivery, you can turn the barrel and accomplish the same thing. That's what we'll do to balance the deliveries, main deliveries, the actual idle, mid-range, start deliveries, controlled by the rack. Has to be free to go from the full delivery to the shut-off delivery. If it sticks anywhere, it's either going to run away or it's going to die. And that's one of the situations we're trying to correct right now on Wes's pump. Each one of these have an ID mark. Start out with them in the middle of the slots. Attach our clamping shims. We're going to get rid of that one. Okay, nothing attached to the rack yet, so it's totally free. Next we'll install the control sleeves. See, all 6 sleeves are in register with the rack. Go free. Upper spring seats. Return springs. And plungers. ID mark. Of course, the plungers are still not in their segments yet. They're up on their springs. We're going to have to compress the springs inside the housing to be able to get our tappets and cam in. This is a bracket that we're going to use to compress our tappets. You can see, can't put the cam through there. Same tappet tools we use to disassemble the pump. Now, as I compress the tappets and plungers, the plungers have to get engaged in the control sleeves. So it's just a matter of hit and miss. There it's in, all the tool. Make sure the rack's free. So number 1 plunger in this condition here, of course it's a brand new plunger. Pump's cool. Rack's free. We'll just go down the line. Get a little more clearance yet for the cam. Okay, now this condition here, with them actually pushed further up in the housing than the cams you're going to ask for, it could cause the rack to be tight right now. Now we'll go ahead and put our front bearing end plate in. straight bearing. We'll grease it up before putting it in. Okay, on a 7000 series, it has a double taper bearing here, which centers itself, has no end play. If the pump has too much end play, it's because this bearing is worn out. This bearing is fine. We'll pre-lube it. Just a little bit. Pre-lube this one with grease. All new O-rings. When the tappet's held up, the cam ought to slide right in. Okay, we have a tool here now to help press this into the housing. And make a check for freedom of movement. Still free. Okay, our center cam bearing is secured with stretch bolts, and they need replaced every time you rebuild the pump. They have their own Loctite on them. I'm going to get snug tight, and then a 90-degree stretch. Bearing cam should be free. It is. No end play. Up to 4 thousandths, but closer to none. The measure protrusion on it, it's not adjustable on a 7000 series, but it still needs to fall in a 13.5 millimeter range. I'm at 13.4, which is in specs. Again, you don't want the taper of the front of the pump sticking too far in the engine. You also don't want it too far back in the pump, causing governor problems. So we'll take the pressure off the tappet tools now. All the tappet spring pressure now is on the cam. Can't rotate the cam without a wrench now. Rack needs to be free. Now we'll secure the bottom. The pump build is pretty much complete now. We're going to start assembling the governor to it. Most of the issues we've covered on Wes's problem pertain to the pump. Governor,
RQV construction, stock. Not going to go into the principles of an RQV operation here. I'm sure there's other videos somewhere that have that. I'm just going to assemble it. All new gaskets and seals. All parts have been prepped in our teardown area, cleaned up, based off for new gaskets. Put off installed. Next will be the flyweight assembly, which we also have to take in consideration. This adjusts our timing. We're on a cushion drive. However we secure that to the cam is going to determine where our timing is at. First thing we're going to do is put this tool on the front end of the cam. Basically a 6 1/4 degree offset tool for the end. Whenever we attach this tight, it's going to give us a timing of 13 degrees on the engine, which is stock for this pump. So with the cam secured in the position I want it to be in, I can lock this to the camshaft now. It's mounted on rubber cushions, just to isolate camshaft vibration from the flyweights. Okay, we're going to use Loctite just on the threads. The actual taper is dry. Here's just a very short general description of how the flyweights work in this pump. There's 3 different positions. There's a start position, an idle governor, and a top end governor. Everything in the middle is controlled with foot feed pressure, throttle pressure. First set of these weights is just for the start position. Runs my rack follower. When it gets underneath the fuel plate, again we're going back with the stock Bosch fuel plate. This pump here, it never goes underneath the plate to go to start. It's always in the range here or on one of the fuel ramps. Okay. Second position of these weights is the idle governor. The last position is the full load governor. You get on the high speed springs. So we'll take the weights, put them in position. Timing positioner has slots in it also for fine tuning on the stand. Whatever the tool doesn't get perfectly. We'll attach it. We'll have another break off bolt for once our timing is set. We'll break the head of that bolt off so that no one else can mess with the timing. Position this in the middle of its slots. Timing pin. We'll engage it with a pointer on the weights. Spacer washer. These have to be on their rubber cushions when it's done and not locked to the cam. If it's locked to the cam, if the spacer's too thin, the weights under vibration of the pump could back the nut off. If you lose control of your weights can't sense the speed of the pump, and your engine can run away. It can do all sorts of things. So once we torque this in, we'll make sure that that's got some freedom. Got Loctite on the threads. And we still have freedom of movement on the cushions, so that's good. These move without that moving. Cushions don't apply to the pointer. Remove the pointer. Otherwise, if we rotate the pump, we'll break our pointer. Set on the test stand. And remove the timing tool. Okay, we have another adjustment. position of the sleeve in relation to the weights. Transfer movement. Simple go, no go gauge is just a touch out of adjustment to make this shorter. Half turn. And adjustment. Okay, clip the pin back in place. First portion of it's complete. Reassemble some of the rest of it. Middle portion is complete. Now we're going to work on the cover. If you remember on disassembly, one of the issues we found was bent throttle shaft. Also has wear at the seal area, which was causing an oil leak. So throttle shaft's going to be replaced. You also remember the guide block assembly, which is attached to this, has tapered pins. Once they're installed, they're hard to get out. We had trouble getting one of them out. We actually damaged, destroyed the guide block. We're going to replace it with new. I looked on our Bosch parts lists. There's maybe 50 or 75 different guide block assemblies. So you really need to use the correct one, the right part number. Bosch. Okay, we're going to replace the throttle shaft with new. It'll get pinned to this new block. When it does, we're going to have to ream the holes out. Right now those are straight drilled holes. The pin won't even fit in either direction. So the location of the throttle shaft, throttle lever, keyway, important. Direction of the guide block and the pump's important. It'll get put on that direction there. Drill from the back side along with the key. Okay, we have the reamer to match the pins, 2/0 reamer. Use it in a drill. It has to do with experience and knowing what you're going to do, how deep to drill it. Start with the outer one. Okay, so I have one of them finally through. This new block is tough as the old one was getting it apart. First one's set, we'll match the second one to the first one. And a new blanking plug for the back. And we'll let the epoxy set up a little bit on it, and we'll install the shaft, guide block, new pins, and we'll be ready to install this to that. Pretty much completes the governor cover. Rack's still free, both directions. Just more buttoning up. Stock fuel plate. Pretty much the completed build-up. Mounting flanges, test hubs, and we'll be ready to test it. Okay, we're going to set this up on the test stand now. We're gonna basically be, thinking about what's this problem the whole time about a sticky rack, especially once it starts to get warmed up a little bit. Some of the main things, again, this is a Robert Bosch test spec, which I transferred to our sheets paper. We gotta have a certain number test nozzle, have to have a certain number test line. We'll have a dial indicator running on a rack. Portion in there, the control rack was trying to keep free. So we'll know if it's in the shut off or the full rack for any of my different settings. And of course we'll be looking for any kind of leaks, just anything we would normally be looking for on a test stand. We'll set our timing, set our RPMs, high idle, low idle, adjust our fuel. Again, we're going to set it maybe like 10% over specs. I'm not going to change the stop plate. We're using a Bosch stop plate just to eliminate any kind of other interferences and problems. We'll fill it up with oil ourselves. We don't run oil pressure on the test stand. For one, it'd take too long to fill up, and it would end up being too full of oil for what we want on the test stand. So we'll get her set up and we'll get ready to show you how we're going to test it. First step, we're going to high pressure phase our timing. They need to be 60 degrees apart in the firing order. Because we're using high pressure, it'll also be a good time to watch for leaks. If it's ever going to leak, it'll leak here under 200 to 300 pounds. On the engine, it may be running 20 to 30 pounds. We have to have a mid-rack setting on our dial indicator gauge, which later on, the dial indicator will also be telling us if our rack is free or stuck or what's going on. So first thing we'll do is set our timing. We set our dial for our 3-wheel at 0. Go to number 5, 60 degrees apart. Number 5 is half a degree early. So we're going to put a thicker stem in it, raise the barrel up higher. It'll take longer for the plunger to cause it to stop. Number 1, we'll go 6 1/4 degrees past. Again, we're aiming for 13 degrees, which is spec. Loosen our adjustable window, dial it in. Retract the reversible pin, we'll put it in the out position. So the timing is complete, we'll move on to balancing the fuel. Add oil. spec sheet. Donald steel at 13.5 millimeters, this is where I was at. And 153 to 155 cc's. Closer to 155. 2 and 4, pretty close. The other ones are a little bit low. I used a slight adjustment on the barrels to balance it out. First step, balancing it. We're not going for perfection, we'll be here till tomorrow. We do have a variance set, and as well within the variations. Before I record it, I'm going to go down and check the balance item. I see the delivery, check the number 6, maybe a CC lower, I'll top that one to the side. Good down delivery. I'll be down. Torque in my flange bolt. Left while you let it settle. Left it a little bit over the spec. I'm going to slide the fuel plate. So I can get 10% over my top end delivery. Any further adjustment will have to be done by the customer and the owner. Idea what we're searching for. 155 cc's of stock. 10% would be another 15 added to that, which comes to basically 170, which is right where we're at. Number 6 is a touch higher because I bumped it up at idle. I just soon had it balanced at idle. That's unnoticeable on an engine. It's within the specs. check our torque backup spec. I've already checked the RPM at the top. It's going to basically break away from full load at 2600 on the engine. Idle will be in the neighborhood of 3000 to 3100. Both are in spec. Full load is set to 14.0. Even deliveries. Homestead, got it set approximately 10% over. Idle set. Both on the Android, which we're still going to have in the system. Start with no boost on it. We're simulating no air condition when this truck is running without turbo boost. This setting will also be approximately 10% over specs for the customer's request. Make sure that we get our full load with air pressure to it. Same thing we set our fuel to. Full fuel with about 8 psi of boost pressure in specs. Boost pressure for the starting speed. Another spec, 13 to 14 millimeters at the starting speed on a 14. Between 14 and 17 cc. Over is okay, but under is not. Our starting specs with the new barrel plungers we expect to be. Okay, we have the stand very warm, but we are not going to get it hot. Full of calibration fluid is only good up to a certain temperature. If we got over that temperature, I would basically have to change my fluid. And I'm not doing that for Wes or probably anybody else. I already am assured, just by building the pump, think I've already covered the problems. And getting it hot, in this case, it's not me worth losing my calibration fluid. We will guarantee the pump though for hot conditions. We've now flipped our timing pin around, engaged it with a weight pin. So this pump will be ready to be installed on an engine now at top dead center compression, number 1. We're going to hold on a new shutoff solenoid. Again, it's not a problem, but to cover all of our bases, to keep it from stalling because of a faulty solenoid, we're just going to install a new one. And Wes, if you're involved or watching this, I am putting break-off bolts in there, not to keep you out, or keep anybody out, but if anybody goes into it, I'm going to know it. Okay, production is complete. One more seal. And we will take and paint it now.
Alright, here it is. Pretty awesome repairs on this one. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here back at the parts counter. So, first and foremost, you watched Gary perform his craft on this injection pump for Wes. He's done a fine job. Gary's been with Area Diesel for almost 40 years. Almost all of those years focused on these inline Bosch pumps, and his level of experience, I would say, would rival anyone in the industry. So we definitely had the right guy on task for this project, and I'm very confident we have this one whipped back into shape. So what was wrong? Oddly, almost nothing. And if it hadn't been for Wes's detailed description of the symptoms, we might have fixed this one without even having known it. And we'll dive into kind of what I'm talking about there. But this thing was in fantastic condition. You could tell it had been well taken care of. Quality of fuel that had been run through it throughout its life was good. Oil was maintained and changed regularly. This pump was in pretty darn good condition. Good, detailed set of circumstances, complaints, symptoms is paramount in our ability to diagnose, fix, repair, and understand what's going on with these pumps. So sometimes people think we might ask a little bit too many questions, but there's a reason that we're doing that. So we're trying to get a thorough understanding of what is going on and what is being experienced with the pump. Fortunately, in this situation, Wes even went to the extent of sending us a video live in action while this thing was acting up. So again, remember the conditions, the symptoms were very intermittent with this pump. During high temperature, so high ambient temperature, fully up to operating temperature engine, so fully heat-soaked pump, this thing would exhibit its problem very intermittently. Wes had lots of miles trying to replicate the issue, but what he would find is at full operating temperature on a hot day, this thing would develop a single cylinder misfire. That problem would evolve, increase into a multiple cylinder misfire event, and then he would lose throttle control, so the throttle would stick on him, and then after that the engine would start to die and cut out completely.
That's got to be at least 2 cylinders. Right there, the throttle's stuck on me. My foot is off the pedal. There, it finally came down. Now it's dead. No, bounce back. Alright, yeah, we're dead. Yeah, I spoke too soon. It's dead. Alright. So the big thing to pay attention to is the fuel pressure gauge. As far as I can tell, it has good fuel pressure. Yeah, so it bounces all over the place, but that's not unusual. Yeah, see, it still had fuel pressure when it died. It's really hard to see on this gauge. You need a fluid-filled gauge that damps out the pulses of the mechanical pump. But the long story short is that the supply fuel pressure seems to be fine.
You can see what this thing was doing. After it died, it was a hard restart. It wouldn't restart until things cooled off a little bit, and then it would fire back up and the cycle would repeat. Get all the way warmed up, start to miss and sputter, throttle would stick, she'd die and cut out. Wes was monitoring supply fuel pressure during these events. That's always suspect number 1. Are you feeding the pump quality fuel at the right pressure? Wes, as you know, is an expert and he confirmed this. The other thing would have been solenoid operation. So is the shutoff solenoid fully turning the pump on, or is it getting weak and starting to shut off the pump, which can replicate some of the same issues? Wes had confirmed both of those things already. Supply fuel was good and at the right pressure. Solenoid was acting correctly, and that pretty well narrows it down to an injection pump issue. There's a million parts in there, and outside of this solenoid, the rest of this pump is purely mechanical. And as you may know, mechanical things tend to not be intermittent, right? They're either worn out or broken, and those conditions don't change. Because of that information, because of the detailed symptoms and video from Wes, we start to get a pretty good understanding of what we believe was going on with this pump. And interestingly, there is a bulletin. Gary remembers receiving this bulletin. This bulletin is dated 1995, the same year I believe as this truck. And we'll pop this bulletin up and let you have a look at it. This is the smoking gun in this scenario. And the reason I say we would have fixed this even if we didn't have all of that information is because of what this bulletin alludes to. And the situation, the problem with this pump was really pretty minor. We're talking about a issue with effectively a $1 O-ring inside of this pump. And what happens, there's 2 O-rings on this barrel and plunger. So this is the business end of the pump. This is the pumping element. This is what makes the fuel delivery. The camshaft turns in the pump, pushes this element in and out, pumps fuel out to the injector. The problem with this pump, one of these O-rings had either started to fail or failed, and they looked fine, or over the course of 25 or 27 years, diesel fuel had crept in between these two O-rings, or potentially during assembly 27 years ago, calibration fluid or assembly grease was in between these two O-rings. That fluid, whatever it may have been, or a bad O-ring, captures fluid in between these O-rings, and when that fluid expands, it squeezes in the barrel of the pumping element and sticks it. So this one was just starting to develop this complaint, this symptom, and it would have gone on undoubtedly to get worse. We can see on the plunger, one of the plungers shows evidence of sticking, and that's what was going on. When this pump got to full operating temperature, whatever schmoo was in between these O-rings was expanding enough in the cavity to squeeze the barrel and seize the plunger. When you watch Wes's video, you can see it happen. That engine is becoming increasingly hot and warm, and as it does, that schmoo expands and that plunger sticks. When that plunger sticks, that cylinder begins to misfire, and because it's stuck and the rack and the foot feed are what control the orientation of the plunger, when it sticks, the throttle sticks and you lose foot feed input to the injection pump. Once it sticks, then you'll see the engine will sputter out and die, and it's dead in the water until he pulls over, lets it cool off. This plunger will become unstuck, fire it back up, and then the cycle repeats. Heat it up enough until the schmoo expands again, squeezes the plunger inside of the barrel, seizes it, and the process repeats. When I was talking earlier about the fact we would have repaired this without even knowing it, that's because these plungers always come out and these O-rings always get replaced, and our experts know not to put grease or lube or whatever in between those O-rings, because this is a known thing. Not very common. It's a good thing that Gary's been here for 40 years. It's a good thing that Gary remembers getting this bulletin 27 years ago, and he's seen it throughout his experience, and we believe confidently that was the situation with this pump. Mechanically, outside of that one small spot on one barrel and plunger, the plungers looked fantastic. Camshaft excellent, bearings excellent, housing fantastic, governor, weights, springs, all looked great. Throttle lever we talked about earlier, she got damaged in shipping. This would have been replaced regardless. Where the seal rides, there's a groove like any other lip seal. Over time, that seal will wear into the shaft. That seal was leaking prior to this thing having been bent in shipping. New barrels and plungers, all 6 of them. New throttle shaft, guide bushing for the throttle shaft. So you can see during the disassembly process, this got hammered pretty hard. That's not uncommon. Replace that. Driving the tapered pins out of there can sometimes be a bear. This one got scrapped. No big deal. Originally, when we were at the parts counter, we suspected someone might have been in this pump before, and when Gary got into it, we confirmed it. So this pump had a common upgrade in a fuel plate. This is an aftermarket fuel plate, and this fuel plate fits in the governor, and this ramp is basically what limits rack travel. So this is a in the field method of increasing fuel delivery in these injection pumps. Given the circumstances, we wanted to get back to a baseline as stock as possible pump to ensure that we've got a thorough repair, give Wes a baseline. If he puts this back on and in some slight chance still has an issue, we can say confidently it's not in the pump. You got other fish to fry. We'll send this back. If they want to monkey with it, that's on them. Our recommendation is leave this out. This pump has been calibrated for a pretty conservative increase in fuel delivery, roughly what we suspect this fuel plate would have allowed, but our recommendation is get rid of this. This is for people that are not fuel shops, that don't have calibration equipment, so they can increase fuel delivery in the field. We're a pump shop. We've got test stands and calibration equipment. We can achieve the same results in a more consistent and preferred method rather than using this fuel plate. So we'll send it back. They can do with it what they want. New solenoid, still performing correctly, but after 27 years, it doesn't owe anybody a dime. We're going to put a new unit on there. We use a quality Woodward shut-off solenoid on these pumps. No issues there. Outside of those hard parts, we're talking common service items. So a couple of gasket kits, all the seals and washers, you know, the common sealing components and wear items and bushings and things of that nature. Elaborate repair, interesting and complex failure and diagnosis. I thought it was pretty neat. I think that's pretty cool to watch these components come in and watch an expert do their thing on them. Very happy with the way this thing turned out. Again, we talked about factory delivery was 155 cubic millimeters of fuel. Gary's got it turned up to 170, so a 10% increase over the stock calibration. Again, roughly what we suspect this fuel plate would have been doing, but we feel like we've done it in a better manner. 6 new barrel and plungers. They looked fantastic. That one little dull spot where the one plunger was sticking would not have been an issue. In this scenario, the determination was made to put new barrel and plungers in this pump. And why is that? Well, this truck, as you've seen on West Channel, is pristine, right? This is like a near mint condition 95 Dodge, and they want this thing done absolutely as perfectly as possible. So they got 27 years out of it the first time. It's off the truck, it's in our hands. The statement of spare no expense was made. Do it right, we don't want to do it again. Scattergun approach. We're going to do everything we believe that'll put this thing back in service for another 40 years out there. No expense spared, new Bosch barrel and plungers. Alright, so the $1 million question, what did it cost? This pump at today's rate with this level of component replacement rang up at $3,615.16. A lot of money, we understand it. 27-year-old truck, tough pill to swallow. You will find on the internet, if you look, you can buy this pump exchange for a fraction of that price, and you'll never hear us knock a competitor or another supplier, but I would caution you to investigate what it is you're getting for $1,300 or $1,500 online. I'll tell you, our cost as a Bosch authorized service dealer on 6 barrel and plungers for this pump approaches that number that you're seeing these pumps being sold for online. We understand it's a lot of money. It's a tough pill to swallow on a 27-year-old truck, but this one's a little special. This truck's mint. The customer says, spare no expense. I want it done right. I don't want to do it again. And as you may have heard, the customer's always right. So you want full service, that is what you will get. So normal repair and return, average cost for repair level work on these pumps, generally just under $2,000 to go through one, fix on it, get it set back up and shipped back out to you. So again, there'll be kind of 2 versions of this content. We'll have one short version kind of summarizing and highlighting the scenario and repairs, and then we'll have another version, a deep dive, full feature director's cut with all the nitty-gritty details for those of us geeks out there that want to see exactly what went into this. 2 versions of this video, and if you would, drop us a comment below. Let us know which version is your preference. If you're not already following Wes's channel, please go over there and check him out. We'll drop you a link to see his channel. You can go over there, watch this pump get reinstalled on the engine, and see if we've corrected the issues. I'm confident we have. Alright, if you need to get a hold of us, please reach out. We do pumps, injectors, turbochargers, engine kits, sensors, emissions components, all types of diesel related components and accessories. If you need to get a hold of us, you can call us at 800-637-2658. That one phone number rings all 3 of our locations in Illinois, Indianapolis, and Iowa, where you'll have immediate access to a diesel engine expert. You can drop us an email at parts@areadiesel.com, or you can log on to our website at areadieselservice.com, where you can find lots of valuable resources and information, look up parts and cross references, and you can chat instantly through the button in the bottom right hand corner of your screen with one of those diesel engine experts. Whatever's easiest for you, we're here to try and help. If you do find yourself in need of something and you mention to us that you learned of us through this collaborative effort with fellow YouTube creator Watch Wes Work, we'll cover the shipping on your parts or project, and we'll throw in a pair of Area Diesel mechanics gloves or whatever other swag we have in stock at the time. That's it. Thanks for watching. There's your problem, lady.